I found the bank statement by accident. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I was looking for our mortgage documents in Nathan's home office. The filing cabinet was disorganized, folders mixed together without any system. That's when I saw the account I didn't recognize. Wells Fargo, account ending in 7392. I'd never seen it on our joint financial reviews. My hands trembled as I opened the folder. Monthly statements going back 12 years. Every single month, without fail. A transfer of $3,000 to an account belonging to someone named Melissa Winters. $3,000. Every month. For 12 years. I did the math in my head. $432,000. Nearly $500,000 sent to a stranger, and I'd never known about it. My daughter Sophie's college fund had exactly $48,000 in it. We'd been telling her for years that she'd need scholarships because we couldn't afford her dream school. We'd said no to the advanced art classes she begged for because they were too expensive. We bought a modest house instead of the one with the art studio I'd wanted because Nathan said we needed to be financially responsible. And all this time he'd been sending $3,000 a month to someone named Melissa Winters. I grabbed my laptop and started searching. Melissa Winters wasn't hard to find on social media. She lived in Portland, about 2 hours from our home in Seattle. Her Facebook profile was semi-private, but her profile picture showed her with a young girl who looked about 12 years old. The girl had Nathan's distinctive green eyes and dimpled chin. My stomach dropped. I scrolled through what I could see of Melissa's timeline. Photos of the girl. Her name appeared to be Brooklyn. At dance recitals, piano performances, art shows, horseback riding competitions. All expensive activities. All funded, I now realized, by my husband. By money that should have been going to our daughter Sophie. I heard Nathan's car pull into the driveway. It was only 3 in the afternoon. He usually didn't come home until 6. I quickly photographed the bank statements with my phone and put everything back exactly as I'd found it. When Nathan walked in, I was in the kitchen preparing dinner, acting like my entire world hadn't just shattered. "You're home early," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Slow day at the office," he replied, kissing my cheek. "Where's Sophie?" "At Mia's house. Working on a school project. I'll pick her up at 6. Nathan grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat at the kitchen table. I watched him, this man I'd been married to for 15 years, and wondered how I'd never noticed he was living a double life. "How was your day?" he asked. "Fine," I lied. "Just running errands, doing paperwork. The usual." I wanted to scream at him, to throw the bank statements in his face and demand answers. But something stopped me. If I confronted him now, in the heat of discovery, he'd have time to prepare excuses, to hide evidence, to spin the narrative. I needed to know everything first. That evening, after Sophie went to bed, I told Nathan I wasn't feeling well and went to our bedroom early. I locked myself in the bathroom and went through the photos I'd taken of the bank statements more carefully. The payments had started exactly 12 years and 9 months ago. Brooklyn appeared to be 12 years old. The timeline made horrible sense. Nathan had gotten another woman pregnant around the same time Sophie was born. While I'd been recovering from childbirth, adjusting to motherhood, struggling with postpartum depression, he'd been starting a second family. And he'd been funding that second family with money that should have been going to us. Over the next week, I conducted my investigation carefully. I created a fake Facebook account and sent a friend request to Melissa Winters. She accepted within hours. Now I could see everything. Brooklyn's entire life was documented in photos. Her first day of kindergarten, her birthday parties, elaborate events with pony rides and professional entertainers. Her bedroom, a beautiful space with custom furniture and walls covered in her own artwork. Photos of family vacations to Hawaii, Disneyland, Europe. All while Sophie had been sharing a small bedroom with hand-me-down furniture, begging for art supplies we said we couldn't afford, never taking vacations beyond camping trips because money was tight. I found receipts in Nathan's email for Brooklyn's private school tuition. $15,000 per semester. I found records of payments for her dance lessons, piano lessons, art classes, horseback riding. Everything Sophie had ever asked for and been denied, Brooklyn had. But the worst discovery came when I found Nathan's personal calendar, synced to his phone. Every other Saturday, blocked off as client meeting Portland. For 12 years, he'd been visiting them. spending full days with Brooklyn while telling me he was working. I remembered those Saturdays. How I'd felt guilty asking him to help with Sophie because he was working so hard for our family. How I'd struggled alone with grocery shopping, housework, and a young daughter while he was supposedly building his career. He'd been building a relationship with his other daughter instead. I needed to know if Melissa knew about me and Sophie. I sent her a direct message through my fake account, posing as a mother interested in the private school Brooklyn attended. Melissa responded warmly, answering my questions about the school. Then she mentioned how blessed they were that Brooklyn's father was so involved and supportive. He never misses her important events, she wrote. He's been there for every recital, every performance, every milestone. Brooklyn adores him. She's so lucky to have such a devoted dad. The words felt like knives. Nathan had missed Sophie's 6th grade graduation last year because of a work emergency. He'd missed her art show in 4th grade. He'd missed countless soccer games, school performances, and parent-teacher conferences because he was too busy with work. But he'd been there for all of Brooklyn's milestones. He'd chosen which daughter to prioritize, and it hadn't been mine. I asked Melissa casually if Brooklyn had siblings. No, she's an only child, Melissa replied. Her father isn't married. He's focused entirely on his career, and on being a good dad to Brooklyn. So Melissa didn't know about me. Nathan had lied to her too, telling her he was single, free to be a devoted father without any conflicting obligations. He'd been living 2 completely separate lives for 12 years. I sat in my car outside Sophie's school, waiting to pick her up, and watched her through the window. She was 14, beautiful and talented, with dreams of becoming an artist. She'd applied for a summer art intensive at a prestigious program, but we'd told her we couldn't afford the $3,000 tuition, the same amount Nathan sent to Melissa every single month. Sophie had cried when we'd said no. She'd worked so hard on her application, had been so excited when she'd been accepted. But we'd told her it was impossible, that maybe she could go when she was older, after she'd saved up money from a part-time job. Meanwhile, Brooklyn was taking private art lessons with a professional artist. Brooklyn was attending the best private school in Portland. Brooklyn was getting everything. I thought about all the times I'd made Sophie feel guilty for asking for things. We need to be grateful for what we have, I'd told her. Not everyone can afford extras. We're doing our best. But we weren't doing our best for her. Nathan was doing his best for his other daughter, and I'd been his unknowing accomplice, enforcing the scarcity he'd created by siphoning off our resources. When Sophie got in the car, she was quiet. Everything okay? I asked. She shrugged. Mia's parents are taking her to New York this summer, to visit art museums and galleries. I told her it sounded fun. Her voice was wistful, tinged with the resignation of a child who'd learned not to ask for things she knew she couldn't have. Maybe we could plan a trip like that, I said carefully. Maybe for your birthday. Sophie looked at me with surprise, then skepticism. Mom, we can't afford that. It's fine. I have books from the library with pictures of those museums. That night, after Sophie went to bed, I confronted Nathan. Not with everything I knew, not yet, but with one simple question. Where does our money go? I asked. He looked up from his laptop. What do you mean? I mean, you make good money. I work part-time. We should be comfortable. But we're always tight on funds. Always telling Sophie we can't afford things. Where does it all go? Nathan's expression remained neutral, but I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Panic, maybe. Bills, mortgage, everyday expenses, he said. It's expensive to live in Seattle. You know that. Show me, I said. Show me the budget. Let's go through our finances together and see where we can cut costs, so we can do more for Sophie. Nathan closed his laptop. Claire, I handle the finances. You know that. I've always managed our money. And I'm asking to see it. Sophie deserves better than what we're giving her. If you're managing our finances, show me how. I watched him calculate his options. He couldn't refuse without seeming suspicious. But showing me the real finances meant I'd discover the missing $3,000 per month. Fine, he said. This weekend. We'll go through everything. But I wasn't waiting until the weekend. The next day, while Nathan was at work and Sophie was at school, I went to a lawyer. I brought copies of everything I'd found, The bank statements, the emails, the records of payments to Melissa and Brooklyn. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia, reviewed everything with a grave expression. "Your husband has been committing financial infidelity," she said. "These payments were made without your knowledge or consent. Depending on whether this account is in his name only or if it's connected to joint assets, you may have grounds for legal action." "I want a divorce," I said. "And I want to make sure Sophie gets what she deserves. Everything he's given to his other daughter, Sophie should have gotten instead." Patricia nodded. "We can pursue that. But Claire, I need to warn you. This is going to be messy. Your husband has a child with another woman. That child is entitled to support. We can't take away money that legally goes to supporting a minor." "He has enough money to support both daughters," I said. "What he doesn't have the right to do is give one child everything while his other child gets nothing. Sophie has suffered because of his choices. I want that acknowledged." "We'll make sure it is," Patricia promised. Over the next 2 weeks, I gathered more evidence. I documented every time Sophie had been denied something because of budget constraints. The art program she couldn't attend. The school trip to Washington, D.C. she'd missed. The laptop she needed for school that we'd bought secondhand. The orthodontic treatment we delayed. I created a spreadsheet showing what Brooklyn had received versus what Sophie had been denied. The disparity was staggering. But I still hadn't told Sophie any of this. She was 14, dealing with normal teenage struggles. How could I tell her that her father had another daughter he'd been prioritizing for her entire life? That the financial struggles she'd grown up with were manufactured because Dad was funding a secret second family? I decided she needed to know before the divorce proceedings started. She deserved to hear it from me, not from court documents or school gossip. I took her out for ice cream on a Saturday afternoon, Nathan conveniently away on one of his Portland client meetings. We sat outside the ice cream shop, and I tried to find the words to destroy her world. "Sophie, there's something I need to tell you about Dad," I began. She looked up from her sundae, immediately worried. "Is he okay? Is he sick?" "No, he's not sick. But I've discovered something that's going to be hard to hear." I told her everything. About the secret bank account. About Melissa and Brooklyn. About the 12 years of funding another child's life while telling Sophie we couldn't afford extras. I watched my daughter's face as she processed the information. Shock, hurt, confusion, and finally heartbreak. "He has another daughter," she whispered. "For my whole life? I'm so sorry, sweetie. I just found out too." Tears streamed down Sophie's face. "Is that why we could never afford art classes? Why you said no to the summer program?" "Yes," I said, my own tears falling. "Your father has been sending $3,000 a month to Brooklyn's mother. Money that should have been invested in you." Sophie was quiet for a long time. Then she asked the question I'd been dreading. "Does he love her more than me?" "No," I said firmly, though I wasn't sure I believed it. "But he made terrible choices. He prioritized her needs over yours, and that was wrong." "I want to see," Sophie said suddenly. "I want to see who she is." I hesitated, then pulled out my phone and showed her Melissa's Facebook page. Sophie scrolled through photos of Brooklyn, her half-sister, though they'd never met. Brooklyn at her dance recital in an expensive costume. Brooklyn at her piano performance in a concert hall. Brooklyn in her beautiful bedroom, surrounded by art supplies. Brooklyn on vacation in Hawaii, then Disneyland, then Paris. Sophie's hand shook as she scrolled. "She has everything," she said quietly. "Everything I ever wanted." "I know, baby. I'm so sorry." "Does she know about me?" Sophie asked. "No. Her mother thinks your father is single." Sophie looked at me, and I saw something harden in her eyes. Something that broke my heart because no 14-year-old should have to feel that way. "I hate him," she said. "I know," I replied. "And that's okay. What he did is unforgivable." That evening, when Nathan came home from his client meeting in Portland, Sophie wouldn't speak to him. She went straight to her room and locked the door. Nathan looked at me confused. "What's wrong with Sophie?" "She knows," I said simply. "Knows what?" "About Brooklyn. About Melissa. About the $3,000 a month you've been sending them for 12 years, while telling your legitimate daughter we can't afford art supplies." I watched all color drain from Nathan's face. Claire, I can explain. Don't, I interrupted. Don't insult me with explanations. I've seen the bank statements. I've seen the emails. I've seen Melissa's Facebook page showing Brooklyn's entire privileged life funded by money that should have gone to Sophie. Nathan sank into a chair. How did you find out? Does it matter? The point is, I know. Sophie knows. And now we need to talk about what happens next. It's not what you think, Nathan said desperately. Brooklyn isn't, Melissa and I aren't together. It was one mistake, and I've been trying to do right by the child. By giving her everything while your other child gets nothing. I asked coldly. By lying to me for 12 years? By making Sophie feel guilty for asking for basic things while Brooklyn attends private school and takes horseback riding lessons. Nathan put his head in his hands. I was trying to take care of both of them. You took care of one of them, I corrected. Brooklyn has been your priority. Sophie has been an afterthought. That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time you attended one of Sophie's school events? When's the last time you did something special with her? You've been going to Portland twice a month for 12 years. How many times have you taken Sophie somewhere special? Nathan couldn't answer. I want a divorce, I said. And I want you to understand what you've done. You didn't just betray me. You betrayed your daughter. You made her grow up feeling like she wasn't worth investing in. Like her dreams didn't matter. Like she had to settle for less while some other child got everything. Sophie will always be taken care of, Nathan said. I love her. You have a terrible way of showing it, I replied. Over the next few days, Nathan tried everything to salvage the situation. He apologized to Sophie, who refused to see him. He promised to make things right, though he couldn't explain how. He begged me to reconsider the divorce, claiming we could work through this. I refused. What he'd done wasn't just an affair or a one-time mistake. It was a sustained, deliberate choice to prioritize one child over another for more than a decade. That wasn't something counseling could fix. The divorce proceedings began. My lawyer filed papers detailing Nathan's financial deception and the impact on Sophie. We demanded that Sophie's college fund be replenished to match what had been spent on Brooklyn. Nathan's lawyer argued that Brooklyn was entitled to support, that Nathan had been meeting his legal obligations to both children. The issue isn't whether Brooklyn deserves support, Patricia countered. The issue is that Mr. Carter gave one child excessive resources while deliberately keeping his other child in artificial scarcity. He could have supported both daughters adequately. Instead, he chose to give one everything and the other nothing. The judge ordered a full financial review. When the accounting was complete, the numbers were even worse than I'd thought. Nathan's income over the past 12 years had been substantial enough to comfortably support both families if he divided resources fairly. Instead, Brooklyn had received approximately 70% of his discretionary income, while Sophie had received less than 10%. The remaining 20% had gone to Nathan's personal expenses. This represents a clear pattern of favoritism and financial neglect, the judge noted. Mr. Carter had the means to provide for both daughters but chose to prioritize one significantly over the other. Nathan was ordered to replenish Sophie's college fund to match what had been spent on Brooklyn's education and activities. He was also ordered to provide retroactive compensation for all the things Sophie had been denied over the years. The financial judgment was satisfying, but it didn't heal the emotional damage. Sophie struggled with the knowledge that her father had chosen another daughter over her. She withdrew from friends, stopped drawing, something she'd always loved, and spent hours in her room. I took her to therapy. The counselor, a kind woman named Dr. Barnes, helped Sophie process her feelings. It's not about you, Dr. Barnes told her. Your worth isn't determined by your father's choices. He made terrible decisions, but they reflect on him, not on you. But he spent all that money on her, Sophie said. He went to all her events. He was there for her in ways he was never there for me. That means she's worth more than I am. No, Dr. Barnes said firmly. It means your father is flawed and made selfish choices. Brooklyn didn't ask to be prioritized any more than you asked to be neglected. This is entirely on him. Slowly, Sophie began to process and heal. The financial settlement meant she could finally take the art classes she'd always wanted. She enrolled in the summer intensive program she'd been accepted to. She got the laptop she needed, the art supplies she dreamed of, the things that had been denied for so long. But money couldn't buy back the years of feeling like she wasn't good enough. It couldn't erase the memories of being told, "We can't afford it," while Brooklyn lived in luxury. 6 months into the divorce proceedings, I made a decision that many people questioned. I reached out to Melissa. I sent her a message through Facebook from my real account this time, explaining who I was. "I'm Nathan Carter's wife," I wrote. "I've recently discovered that he has a daughter with you named Brooklyn. I thought you should know that he's been lying to both of us. He's married and has another daughter, Sophie, who is 14. I'm in the process of divorcing him, and I wanted you to be aware of the full situation." Melissa called me within an hour. "Is this real?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Is he really married?" "For 15 years, I confirmed. "He has a 14-year-old daughter. He's been living a double life." I heard her crying. "He told me he was single. All these years he said he couldn't commit to me because of his career, because he needed to focus on work and being a good father to Brooklyn. He's been lying to me this entire time." "He's been lying to both of us," I said. "I didn't know about you until 6 months ago." Melissa was quiet for a moment. "Your daughter, Sophie. Has he been supporting her?" "Barely," I said. "While he's been sending you $3,000 a month, we've been telling Sophie we can't afford things. She's missed out on opportunities because we said money was tight." "I didn't know," Melissa whispered. "I swear, I didn't know he had another family." "I believe you," I said. And I did. Melissa had been deceived just as much as I had. "What do we do now?" Melissa asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "But I think our daughters should know about each other. Not now, maybe, but someday." We talked for over an hour. Melissa told me how Nathan had been a constant presence in Brooklyn's life, attending events and spending weekends with them. How she believed he was just an involved co-parent who couldn't commit to a romantic relationship. How she'd never suspected he had a whole other family. "Brooklyn adores him," Melissa said sadly. "This is going to destroy her." "Sophie already knows," I said. "It's destroyed her too." In that conversation, Melissa and I became unlikely allies. Two women who'd been betrayed by the same man, who'd unknowingly competed for his resources and attention, now united in our anger and our desire to protect our daughters. Melissa testified in the divorce proceedings. She confirmed that Nathan had told her he was single. She provided records of his visits, his involvement in Brooklyn's life, his promises to her that he was fully committed to being Brooklyn's father even if he couldn't be her partner. The judge was not impressed with Nathan. "Mr. Carter, you have engaged in a pattern of deception that has harmed multiple people, most significantly your daughter Sophie. You created artificial scarcity in one household while providing abundance in another, all while lying to everyone involved." Nathan tried to defend himself. "I was trying to do right by Brooklyn. She deserved support." "Both of your daughters deserved support," the judge interrupted. "Equal support. You had the means to provide for both adequately. Instead, you chose favorites. That's not parenting. That's cruelty." The final divorce settlement was comprehensive. Nathan was ordered to pay substantial child support for Sophie. He was required to fund her college education fully. Not just tuition but also room, board, books, and expenses. He was ordered to provide retroactive payment for all the opportunities Sophie had missed due to his financial neglect. His visitation rights were limited to supervised visits until Sophie felt comfortable seeing him, which she didn't. Most importantly, the court ordered Nathan to establish equal support for both daughters moving forward. Whatever he spent on Brooklyn's education and activities, he had to spend an equivalent amount on Sophie's. "You wanted to be father to both daughters," the judge said. "Now you will be equally." Nathan's relationship with Sophie never recovered. She refused to see him even with supervision. She didn't want his apologies or his explanations. She wanted nothing from him except the financial support the court had ordered. As for me, I focused on rebuilding our lives. The settlement gave us financial security for the first time in years. Sophie blossomed with access to the resources she'd always needed. She threw herself into her art, attending workshops and classes, developing her talent. She made plans for college, looking at prestigious art schools that were now within reach. But the emotional scars remained. Sophie struggled with trust issues. She worried constantly about being good enough, about being worthy of investment and attention. Therapy helped, but some wounds take years to heal. A year after the divorce was finalized, Sophie asked me about Brooklyn. "Do you think she knows about me now?" Sophie asked. "I assume so," I said. "Your father can't keep lying to everyone forever. Do you think she hates me? For taking money that was hers?" The question broke my heart. "Sweetie, you didn't take anything from Brooklyn. Your father stole from you to give to her. That's not your fault." "But she didn't ask for that either," Sophie said. "She's innocent in this too." My daughter's empathy amazed me. Despite everything, she could see that Brooklyn was also a victim of Nathan's choices. "Would you want to meet her someday?" I asked carefully. Sophie thought about it. "Maybe. When I'm older. When it won't hurt as much." I reached out to Melissa periodically. We developed a strange friendship born from shared trauma. She told me that Brooklyn had been devastated to learn about Sophie and about Nathan's lies. "She feels guilty," Melissa said. "She thinks everything she has should have gone to Sophie." "That's not true," I said. "Nathan had enough money for both girls. This isn't a zero-sum situation where one daughter's gain is another daughter's loss. The problem was Nathan's choices, not the existence of either child." Melissa agreed. "I've told Brooklyn that. But she's 12. She doesn't fully understand yet." "Sophie's 14 and she barely understands," I said. "This kind of betrayal is hard to process at any age." 2 years after I discovered Nathan's secret, I was helping Sophie pack for her first semester of college. She'd been accepted to an excellent art program on the East Coast, fully funded by Nathan's court-ordered support. "Mom," Sophie said as we folded clothes, "can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Do you think Dad loved Brooklyn more than me because she was a secret? Like, because he chose her?" I sat down on her bed, choosing my words carefully. "I think your father is a broken person who made terrible choices. I don't think it was about loving Brooklyn more. I think it was about him trying to assuage his guilt over the affair by overcompensating with Brooklyn." "But he undercompensated with me," Sophie pointed out. "Yes. And that was wrong. But Sophie, you need to understand something. You are not worth less because your father failed to see your value. Your worth isn't determined by how much money someone spends on you, or how much attention they give you." "Then why does it still hurt?" she asked, tears in her eyes. "Because betrayal always hurts. Because you deserved a father who showed up for you the way he showed up for Brooklyn. Because you deserved better than what you got." I pulled her into a hug. "But you survived it. You're going to an amazing school. You're talented and strong and compassionate. You've become an incredible person despite your father's failures. Not because of them." Sophie cried into my shoulder. "I just wish things had been different." "I know, baby. I wish that too." The day we dropped Sophie off at college, Nathan showed up. I hadn't invited him, but he'd learned the date from his lawyer and apparently thought he had a right to be there. Sophie saw him standing by his car in the parking lot and froze. "I don't want him here," she said. "I'll handle it," I promised. I walked over to Nathan. He looked older, worn down by the consequences of his choices. "You need to leave," I said. "She's my daughter. I have a right. You gave up your rights when you spent 12 years treating her like she didn't matter. She doesn't want you here. Respect that." "I just want to say goodbye," Nathan said. "To wish her luck." "You had 14 years to wish her luck. You were too busy with Brooklyn." The words were harsh, but they were true. Nathan's eyes filled with tears. "I know I messed up. I know I can't fix it. But please just let me tell her I'm proud of her." I looked back at Sophie standing by our car watching us. I walked back to her. "He wants to say goodbye," I said. "Do you want to hear it?" Sophie was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Okay. But you stay with me." We walked over to Nathan together. Sophie stood stiffly, her arms crossed, her expression guarded. "Hi, Sophie," Nathan said softly. "You look beautiful. What do you want?" Sophie asked, her voice cold. "I just wanted to say I'm proud of you. I know I haven't been there the way I should have been. But I'm proud of what you've accomplished." "You don't get to be proud," Sophie said. You didn't contribute to any of this except the court-ordered money. Nathan flinched. I know. You're right. But I still love you, Sophie. You have a funny way of showing love, Sophie replied. Giving everything to your other daughter while I went without. Brooklyn didn't ask for that. Neither did I. Sophie's voice rose. Neither of us asked for any of this. But you made choices that hurt both of us. You made me feel worthless while making Brooklyn feel like she was worth everything. Do you have any idea what that does to a person? Nathan was crying now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix it, Sophie said. Sorry doesn't give me back the childhood I deserved. Sorry doesn't make up for all the times you chose her over me. She took a breath, steadying herself. But I'm going to be okay. I'm going to succeed, and I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to do it without you. That's what you need to know. Sophie turned and walked away. Back to the dorm where her new life was waiting. Nathan stood there broken, watching his daughter disappear. I felt no sympathy for him. This is what you created, I said. This is the consequence of your choices. You wanted 2 daughters? You have 2 daughters. One who doesn't know how to trust men because of you, and one who's going to have the same realization when she's old enough to understand what you did. I was trying to do right by Brooklyn. Stop, I interrupted. Stop making excuses. You were trying to ease your guilt. You were trying to be the hero in one story because you knew you were the villain in another. Well, congratulations. You're the villain in both stories now. I walked away, leaving Nathan alone in that parking lot. Sophie was settling into her dorm room when I got there. She was unpacking, arranging her art supplies, starting this new chapter. You okay? I asked. Yeah, she said. I am actually. Saying all that to him. It felt good. Like I finally got to tell him how much he hurt me. I'm proud of you, I said. For being honest. For standing up for yourself. I learned from you, Mom, Sophie said. You could have kept his secret. You could have protected him. But you chose me instead. Always, I said. I will always choose you. We spent the afternoon setting up her room, meeting her roommate, exploring the campus. For the first time in years, I saw Sophie genuinely excited about the future. As I drove home that evening, I thought about the past 2 years. The discovery of Nathan's betrayal. The divorce. The legal battles. The therapy sessions. The tears and anger and slow, painful healing. We'd survived. More than that, we'd emerged stronger. Sophie was going to be okay. She had resources now, opportunities, the foundation to build the life she'd always dreamed of. And she had the knowledge that when it mattered most, someone had chosen her. I'd chosen her. I'd fought for her. I demanded that she receive what she deserved. That had to count for something. 3 years after the divorce, I got a message from Melissa. Brooklyn wants to meet Sophie, she wrote. She's 15 now, old enough to understand everything that happened. She's asked me several times if Sophie would be willing to talk to her. I called Sophie, now a sophomore in college, thriving in her art program. Brooklyn wants to meet you, I said. How do you feel about that? Sophie was quiet. Is she nice? I don't know her personally, but Melissa is a good person. I guess Brooklyn is too. It's not her fault what Dad did, Sophie said. She didn't ask to be the favorite. No, she didn't. Okay, Sophie said. I'll meet her. Not because I want a relationship with Dad's other family, but because she's my half-sister. And maybe we both deserve to know each other. 6 months later, I drove Sophie to a coffee shop in Portland where Brooklyn and Melissa were waiting. I offered to go in with her, but Sophie shook her head. I need to do this alone, she said. I watched through the window as Sophie approached the table. Brooklyn stood up and I saw the recognition on both their faces. They looked alike, same eyes, same dimpled chin, both tall and slender. They hugged awkwardly, then sat down. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I watched their body language shift from tense to more relaxed. They talked for over 2 hours. When Sophie finally came back to the car, she was crying. You okay? I asked. Yeah, she said. Brooklyn's. She's really nice, Mom. And she feels so guilty. She said she didn't know about me for most of her life. And when she found out, she felt terrible about everything she'd been given. What did you tell her? That it wasn't her fault. That we were both victims of Dad's choices. That we could either let his mistakes define us, or we could choose to know each other despite him. That's very mature of you, I said. I also told her I was angry, Sophie admitted. That even though I know it's not her fault, part of me will always resent that she got the father I deserved. That she got the resources and attention and love that should have been mine too. What did she say? She said she understood. And that she was angry too because he lied to her about having another family. Because she thought she was special, and it turned out she was just the preferred one, which isn't the same thing. I pulled out of the parking lot, heading home. Are you going to see her again? Yeah, Sophie said. We exchanged numbers. We're going to try to build some kind of relationship. Not as sisters maybe, but as, I don't know, two people connected by a man who failed us both. 5 years after I discovered Nathan's secret account, I watched Sophie graduate from college with honors. Her artwork had been featured in multiple exhibitions. She'd received job offers from prestigious design firms. She'd built a successful life despite the obstacles her father had created. Brooklyn attended the graduation too. She and Sophie had developed a cautious friendship over the years, bonding over their shared experience of being Nathan's daughters. Nathan wasn't invited to the graduation. Sophie had made that clear. He doesn't get to celebrate my success, she'd said. He didn't invest in it. He doesn't get to claim any credit. As I watched Sophie accept her diploma, I thought about how different our lives could have been if Nathan had made different choices. If he'd been honest from the beginning. If he'd divided his resources fairly between both daughters. If he'd shown up for both of them equally. But he hadn't. And we'd survived anyway. Sophie had thrived despite him, not because of him. That was its own kind of justice. The greatest revenge wasn't legal judgments or financial settlements. It was Sophie succeeding, happy and whole, proving that she'd always been worthy of investment. She just had a father too broken to see it. And in the end, that was his loss more than hers. Because Sophie had become an incredible woman. And Nathan would spend the rest of his life knowing he'd missed out on being part of that journey, because he'd chosen to fund one daughter's dreams while crushing the others. That knowledge would haunt him far more than any court order ever could, and I was okay with that.